What if I told you that business payroll could be one of the fastest, most repeatable ways to earn a massive amount of points without changing your payroll provider, without changing how your employees get paid, and without doing anything complicated on the payroll side? Well, I've personally been running payroll for points since 2023, and in that time, I've earned well over 2 million points just from payroll. And when I first shared this strategy back in episode 53, it completely changed the game for a lot of you because it took something you already have to do anyway and turned it into travel. So while today's episode is going to be a deep dive, we've fully updated and refreshed our blog post on this topic with the newest data points, updated math, FAQs, and step-by-step details. So if you want an easy reference for everything we talk about today, and a few things we don't have time to cover, well, you can find that on our website and a link to that in the show notes as well. And just a quick disclaimer up front, I don't work for Zil Money and I don't have any special access to their platform. I'm simply a customer sharing what's worked for me and for so many people in our community. That said, we do have affiliate links for Zil Money in our blog posts and in the podcast show notes. If you happen to find this strategy helpful and decide to try it yourself, using those links helps support the show and the content we create, and I always appreciate that support. Now today, I'm going down the rabbit hole to walk you through the updated playbook, how payroll by credit card actually works, what's working well right now, which cards are coding for the best multipliers, advanced strategies like splitting payroll across multiple cards, and the real math so you can decide if this is also a no-brainer for your business. Welcome to the Revolutionizing Your Journey podcast. I'm your host, DeAndre Coke. As always, before we get into this episode, a few quick housekeeping reminders. You can watch all of these episodes in their full entirety on our YouTube channel, which is linked in the show notes, as well as for those that only watch our episodes on YouTube. If you're not catching the audio-only version or our audio platforms, you're missing about half the show because every Friday we release our quick hits. That's our up-to-date news in the worlds of points, miles, and travel. And I'd say probably half of our audience loves that more than our actual show every Wednesday. So make sure you're catching that. That's on the audio only version of our podcast, so Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And keep in mind that we do have our YouTube vlog style channel, Boldly Go Travels, where we unpack a lot of our trips and things that we've done with the drone footage, underwater footage, all the different things that we record on our travels. And wherever you're listening to this, make sure to like, subscribe, leave a rating, leave a review, and all of those good things as well. Now, I am super excited after a year and a half to do this episode, which has been a long time in the making, and it's fully on it's basically the updated version of how to do payroll on credit card. Now, I first did this episode back in episode 53 in end of 2024 timeframe. And after I did that episode, plus our blog posts, our podcast really expanded, really blew up with a lot of people that were like, I've been waiting and looking to do this for a long time. Personally, I've been doing this platform, running payroll to get credit card points since 2023. And I had been researching this and looking for a long time. And there was one platform that popped up. And still to this day, they are the primary platform that I would recommend. There is another one that has popped up recently and is brand new as of this recording, which I will make sure to mention. But I'm going to talk through the Zil Money on payroll strategy. Now, we have a full blog post. We have, again, episode 53, which you can watch on YouTube or go back in our podcast for. Now, I'm going to try to cover all the same points, and also go into some of the updates as well. So here's the kind of agenda for today. First, we're going to talk through what's changed since the original payroll episode. We're going to talk through how payroll by credit card actually works. I'm going to do a little bit of a refresher. I do get a little bit more in detail in that last episode, so I will say there are some probably nuggets that are going to be broken up a little bit more as I tried to be really explanatory on that episode. So I will say probably the early part of episode 53 is good to catch if you need a little bit of a refresher there beyond what I talk about in this episode. Then we're going to talk about what cards are coding as what and the fees that you will pay, as well as some advanced strategies to really make this work out. We'll talk through the real math and why this makes sense, why this is basically a no-brainer. We'll pull some data points in from other individuals and contributors that are in our community, especially our WhatsApp group. We have a dedicated WhatsApp group just on the topic of Zil Money, earning credit card points for your payroll. So I'm going to pull in some data points from them as well, even some best practices, how different people do different accounting with their businesses, and also talk through what's next as well. And I'm going to do a little bit of an update as well of what happened in 2025 because the whole system got a huge shakeup, and we're going to cover all of those different things. So to get right into this, essentially, if you have business payroll, this might be the single highest leverage way to earn points that does not require you to change your payroll provider. I want to come out with that first of all. And I'm going to be real with you. There's been a bit of a roller coaster since I first came out with that last episode, and we're going to talk through all of that. But I do think it's important to know that by the end of this, you're going to have a nice recap and should be able to confidently understand how this platform works. And again, we have our community where you can ask questions and talk through things as well if you do have any questions. So here's a bit of a quick refresher. So if you didn't hear the original episode, the whole plan is pretty simple. Essentially, you run your payroll like normal, and then you use Zil Money to fund that payroll amount with a credit card. And then they deposit that into your business bank account and you pay the card off. So it doesn't matter who you use, whether it's Sure Payroll, Gusto, ADP, Paychex, whoever your payroll provider is, QuickBooks even, you do not have to change your platform. Now, to give you guys some basis on this, just if anyone's catching this at the very beginning, not really knowing who I am, I'm a financial advisor. I own a wealth management practice. I've had my practice for over 15 years now. So I've had payroll for a very long time. One of the things as I was looking through this is I didn't want to have to shake up my payroll processing and my strategy, not my strategy, but my practice of how my employees get paid. I want to make sure there was no impact at all to them when doing this. And this strategy works perfectly for it. And so here is essentially how it works. When I charge, and I'm going to use for all of my examples, I'm going to use $10,000 as just an easy number because I think the math is easy to explain. And whatever your payroll is, however your business works, whether your payroll is $50,000 every 2 weeks, $5,000 every 2 weeks, $100,000 every 2 weeks, this will work no matter what, essentially. So when I run my payroll, I get a payroll summary. Now, technically our CFO does, but he sends it to me. We get a payroll summary. That payroll summary shows the gross amount of everything that basically needs to leave our account to cover payroll between health insurance, salaries, bonuses, all of the different things, retirement account contributions, you name it. All of that comes up to some grand total amount. And again, for this example and all my examples, I'm going to use $10,000. Now, when I get my summary, I'm going to go into Zil Money and I'm going to say, I want to go ahead and charge $10,000 onto a specific card. And I pick which card I want to use, and I select the payroll bank account that it's going to be linked to. And that's basically the same bank account that my payroll comes in and out of right now. What happens, so when I do that, I put in what my paycheck date is, and it needs to be in advance. This is one of the changes that's happened from before. Before, if it was May 15th and my payroll was on May 5th, I could have said, hey, my payroll was back on the 5th. Now it has to be in advance. So you have to be doing it for a payroll that's upcoming. It cannot be one that's in the past. And so what I would do is I would select my payroll date and I would put the gross amount, the total amount, in this case, $10,000. I then would upload my payroll summary. Now, they say that you can link to different payroll providers. I think the general consensus is that you just need to provide a PDF because I don't think linking actually does anything that I've seen. And so I upload my PDF in the same kind of pop-up window where I select what my payroll gross amount is. Once I do that, it pops up a fee, and that fee will show for $10,000, it will show about a 2.9% fee, so $290, and I can basically hit go ahead and process. After a series of pop-up windows that come up, documents that you have to digitally sign, and then secondary, there's 2 levels of two-factor authentication. So one, and this is at least what happens for me, one goes to my email, and then after I accept that, then I get a second one that goes to my cell phone. After I select both of those things, it processes. So after that processes, my credit card gets charged for two transactions, $10,000 for the gross amount, and then separately $290 for that fee. When that happens, usually it takes about 3 to 5 business days. It just depends. Sometimes it can be a lot quicker for that $10,000 to then get dropped into my account. So to be very clear, whether I was doing this process or not, I should have the money in my bank account to cover my payroll, whether I was doing this or not. All they're doing, think of it almost like a cash advance, except you're not paying cash advance charges or fees or anything like that like you typically would on a credit card where they instantly charge you interest and other things. They're simply charging my card $10K and dropping that $10K into my business bank account. I personally choose, as soon as I see that hit my business bank account, to pay that $10K off immediately, and what's left is just this $290 fee. Again, we're going to talk through the fees, and we're going to talk through why does this make sense to do if you're still paying fees on the transaction. We're going to go through all of that. Now, a couple things I want to point out from jump. This is not something that you can necessarily game from a I'm going to pretend I have employees standpoint, unless the exception of that you're like a sole business owner, sole practitioner, a physician, whatever it may be. Maybe you file as an S Corp and you're the only employee of your own S Corp, and so you run payroll and pay yourself. That is completely allowed. But I know in the points and miles world, they talk often about, hey, if you don't actually have a brick and mortar business, you're selling things on Etsy or Facebook Marketplace, you can get a credit card, a business credit card specifically, like just in your name as a sole prop. All of that's absolutely valid. This does not tie into what I'm talking about. You do have to have a legitimate payroll, and there's a series of uploading paperwork, EIN confirmations, your business organization formation documents, all sorts of things through Zil Money, this platform, to make it viable for you to actually even do and to process. So I want to be very, very clear. This is not something that I would recommend someone trying to game beyond kind of the strategies that we talk about. I do think it's something that you absolutely want to have payroll being ran. And again, if you are a business owner, and I'm not going to get into the financial benefits of filing as an S Corp and those type of things, but if you're a business owner and you are your only employee and you pay yourself on your own payroll, that absolutely counts. And we have plenty of people in our group that do that. But if you don't have employees, don't have a business, anything like that, this is not something that would fit in that scenario. So before we get into like the benefits of the perks and the numbers and all those different things, I do want to talk a little bit to those people that might have tried this and got into this world last year, because there were so much things that happened in flux in 2025. So when I started this, I basically, in 2023, had successfully run and processed the payroll, every single payroll cycle, all the way up until about March of 2025. And then Zil Money decided that they were going to go ahead and completely change their processing, a credit card processor, I should say, and a lot of different things. And on our site, on our blog post, we have the updates. I have an update almost with dates that have pretty much all of the things that we were finding out as they were happening. But basically, the program was open, then it got shut down. For a time, Amex cards were blocked and weren't working. Then it came back with monthly limits. Once it finally started working, you could only process up to a certain amount. It was almost like the Hunger Games, because on the first of the month, everyone, especially everyone in our group, would try to process everything they could by the first. And anyone that waited till the second of the month, well, they got a pop-up saying, sorry, we've hit our limit of credit card transactions for the month. There were a lot of different things like that were happening that made it really, really frustrating last year. And I want to point that out because while this is a great opportunity to earn a lot of points, who knows how long this will continue to last. Ideally, it continues to last for the foreseeable future, but keep in mind there could be updates, there could be shutdowns, there could be things that make this less ideal in the future, or when you actually are listening to this, if it's down, that's a possibility. As I'm recording this, I've been waiting for a long time to see if it's been stable. I'm recording this now here in March of 2026, and it's pretty much been stable since November of 2025, so that's why I wanted to wait and make sure that they don't just shut down the system again, because that was really upsetting for a lot of people, because it would work and then it wouldn't, and it was just not great. So one of the things that happened in November was that everything started working almost perfectly. There were no longer transaction limits. There were no longer, had to get everything done by the first of the month. All of that was fantastic. But the downside is they started restricting certain industries. And it really wasn't clear the how and the why. Because, for example, we had probably, I'd say maybe half of our medical providers that are in our WhatsApp community were having no issues at all running payroll. And the other ones were, and they were similar practicing physicians or clinics or medical facilities. Also, in wealth management, financial industries seemed to getting blocked as well. There was a lot of different things which caused me to kind of try to figure out how is this being determined. And I can't comment to which ones are approved and which ones are not, but it looks like it's based on your NAICS code, which is the code that dictates what your industry is. A lot of times when you're applying for a credit card or different things, you have to look up or do a sub lookup, maybe under finance. And under finance, it's like, is it insurance? Is it investments? Is it mortgages? Is it banking? Right? So you have to find your specific code. It seems like depending on what your code is, depends on what they would approve or not. So it seems like if you were more like, hey, I'm in professional services as an example, versus specifically I do investment banking for your business code, then certain things were approved, certain things were not approved. So again, that's why I would strongly recommend that you perhaps do something that's more generalized as opposed to hyper specific as you're going through and uploading all your documents and such to get on the Zil Money platform. So that's just a run through of kind of what happened and why there's a shift. And I wanted to bring up that shift because if you had perhaps found this podcast, found the blog, or heard about this, or Google searched it last year, and then you ran into these roadblocks and the system wasn't working right and you were getting frustrated, I wanted you to know that, yes, that was happening to all of us. But for those of us that persevered through, it's been working pretty much flawlessly, at least as of this recording. So let's get into the section of kind of what's working right now and what's the strategies that make the most sense. And I think this is probably going to be the most valuable part of the whole episode. And from what I talked about before in my first episode, episode 53, to now, even with all the updates and the changes and things weren't working and things were coding differently, we're back to where we were. And essentially the staple, the card that makes this all make sense and an absolute no-brainer is the Chase Inc. Business Preferred. And the reason why is because when you run through Zil Money, and I want to be clear and just clarify as well for anyone listening, this is not Zelle, Z-E-L-L-E. This is Zil, Z-I-L, and then Money. So when you run through Zil Money and you run your Chase Inc. Business Preferred, it codes as office and shipping and gets a 3x multiplier up to $150,000 cap. So that means if you charge up to $150,000, or let me just say, if you charge $150,000 on your Chase Inc. Business Preferred card, you're going to get 3x, so essentially 450,000 Chase points on that card with these transactions. And if you remember before, and I'm going to go into fees a little bit more in a minute, but I mentioned there's a 2.9% fee. Let's just round up and say it's 3x. It's actually better. It was 2.99, so it basically was 3x before, but now it's a little bit less. You're getting a 3x multiplier of points and only paying a 2.9x essentially charge in fees. And this can be a huge win, especially when I break down the points and why it can make a lot of sense. So for most of the people in our community that are doing Zil Money on payroll, if they have a Chase Inc. Business Preferred, that is the default, that is the go-to, with the exception on if they have a really high payroll they want to charge and they don't have a high enough credit limit on the Chase Inc. Business Preferred, but we're going to talk through that as well. Now, the next one was a little bit of a surprise, and there's a really interesting data point. I want to credit Stephanie in our group and Kelly as well. And Stephanie confirmed that the Hyatt business card codes in a way that triggers 2x on the Hyatt business card specifically. So meaning that it posts 1x, so a regular charge, just like anything else would, at the time of purchase. And then the other 1x comes as a quarterly bonus after the quarter ends if it was one of your top spending categories. So what's amazing about that is you can essentially get 2 times the points with Hyatt by charging your Hyatt business card. Again, specifically, not the personal card. So why does this matter? Because it's the complete status play here. You're earning points and stacking elite nights. So essentially every $10,000 you spend, that's 5 elite nights that you get with the Hyatt business credit card. And that can be huge for getting globalist. if that's what you're chasing, if you're going after status. But also on that same 10K spend, you're going to be earning 20,000 Hyatt points on that 10K spend in total. And so yes, there's going to be a fee obviously that you're going to pay, but that 20K in points can turn into nights at different properties that could be much more expensive than what you would have paid in cash and or that $290 fee that you would have paid at the time. And then kind of the next staple out there is the Amex Business Platinum. There was a literal month where the Amex Business Gold coded as 4X, which was amazing. But as they were updating their processors last year, that came and went as fast as anyone could react to it. But the Amex Business Platinum is a staple for two reasons. The first is the fact that in general, it doesn't really have a limit. Now, it truly does. You might not be able to charge $1 million all at once, or maybe you can, just depending on your spending habits, but there's no upward limit. So if your Chase Ink Business Preferred or your Hyatt Business Credit Card only have a $10,000 or $20,000 credit limit, but you have a $30,000 or $40,000 payroll, the Amex Business Platinum could be something to consider. Why? Well, again, you have the room, but also now with the new updates with Amex as of last year, it codes as 2X on any transaction over $5,000. So yes, you're not immediately replacing the entire cost of the fee for this card, with it being closer to 3% fee to charge, but with 2X earnings, the values can still be immensely helpful. And I'm going to break down the numbers closer to the end of this episode so you can see that whether you're getting 3X or even 2X, this can still be an absolute no-brainer if you know how to redeem your points, which is what's huge. Hey everyone, quick break from the episode. If you're enjoying the show, make sure you're subscribed on whatever platform you're listening on so you never miss an episode. And if you've gotten any value so far, it would mean the world if you left a quick rating or review. It helps more people discover the show and keeps us motivated to keep creating great content. Also, if you're feeling stuck or want help with points and miles, whether it's picking your first card, planning a big redemption, or even having someone book it all for you, we've got you covered. There's a link in the show notes to schedule a free points and miles consultation. Just fill out a quick questionnaire, tell us your goals, and we'll take it from there. And don't forget, our newsletter and private Facebook group are great ways to stay on top of breaking news, updated card offers, and tips that don't always make it into the podcast. You'll find those links in the show notes as well. Now, back to the episode. Now, there have been a few data points that have come through our group that the fees seem to be a little bit fluid. And so for myself personally, I can only comment on myself. I know that when I go and charge my card, when I go through the Zil Money process, it tells me my fee. I've manually calculated it out. It's about 2.901% essentially. And the fee that I see is the same fee that's charged on my card and the same fee that they show in the system. There have been some others in our group, and they've sent screenshots, so I know it's valid, that they see a different fee reported that's going to be charged than what is charged, and then the system updates to show what was actually charged. And these aren't dramatic, but this can add up when you're talking tens upon tens of thousands of dollars. For instance, Christina reported that her Zil Money payroll fee showed 2.9004% basically, but the card was charged 2.92% after it went through. I know that's not huge. We're talking, I guess, 0.2 of a point essentially, or 0.02 of a point, but that does again add up in additional costs when you're thinking through if you're running a $10,000 or $50,000 payroll. Now, at the end of the day, this is still less than 3%, so I haven't seen anyone report that they're getting charged over 3% when all is said and done. But if you're hoping the math hits you directly at 2.9%, and I don't know the reasons why other people are getting that and I am not, but I think it's important to still note that. So let's talk through a few tactics here and where this can really make sense. And the first is that you can split your payroll across multiple cards. And for example, let's just say you have a $10,000 payroll. You can do, let's say, $5,000 on one card and then $5,000 on another. the way that you would actually do that is you would upload the same payroll summary twice and just pick different amounts to charge on different cards in order to do that. And so that can allow you to stack welcome bonuses, you can manage credit card limits, and keep your point strategy flexible. So I want to shout out to Stephanie for actually testing that herself and figuring that out. Now, another thing to note is, and I didn't actually learn this until, again, our community grew, is that the credit card you use doesn't have to be tied to your business that you actually are reporting the payroll on. And so you can actually have a business credit card that's in your business name. You could have a personal credit card you use. Some people in our group have reported that they use a P2's credit card at times when it makes sense, if they're trying to hit a sub or something like that. So at first, I only ever used the business credit cards I had tied to my wealth management business. And then eventually I realized, again, thanks to our group, that we can actually pick any credit card and it will actually work. And so I'm going to talk through my personal strategy here at the end, but I only really use my Chase Inc. Business Preferred for the most part. Once I hit that $150,000 limit for the year, then I have another Chase Inc. Business Preferred tied to my Boldly Go, my travel brand here, the same brand that I run the podcast through. So I have another $150,000 I can charge through that. And then, of course, I've got Amex Business Platinums and other personal cards I can use to go beyond that if I need to. Now let's talk about the cost to doing this, because I think this is one thing I want to point out as well. I know I mentioned the fee, but there is a monthly cost. And in my first episode I talked through, I was paying $50 a month, and to this day I've still been paying $50 a month. Zil Money was nice when I reached out when their system was down last year. They paused my subscription for the multiple months it was down, easily restarted it when it came back online. So I will say from a customer service standpoint, that was helpful. Now, your miles may vary from this point on because we've had a wide range of just conversational data points from all over the place of people and what they're being told that they are getting charged or they need to be paying and what they're actually paying and all over the place. So I'm going to try to make this kind of succinct and just mention the easiest thing is just to go online with chat and see what you can do yourself. I don't know if it's based off of what you are running on your payroll or not, but the best thing to do is to just talk to customer service and work through as low a number you can possibly get. So, for example, from day one, I've said, hey, there's going to be a cost to do this. In our WhatsApp group, Rob said, I just got my bait and switch email from Zil Money. I was told during my demo that since my payroll is under $5,000, I could pay as I go. Then I got a notice that my trial period had ended and I would have to subscribe for $350 a year and still pay the 2.9% fee. Which no matter what you're paying for a month or a year, that fee is going to be there. That's just a transactional processing fee. And apparently it seems like after he had some conversation with them, they backed off a little bit. And if you're charging less than $5,000 a month, you can go on their pay-as-you-go platform. I'm not exactly sure what that cost is, but it seems to be made perhaps a little bit less if you do pay-as-you-go. Now, other people have reported that they've been told $100 a month or $1,000 a year. Other people have been able to negotiate that down to $400 a year, $500 a year. I think Vi in our group specifically got it down to $249 a year. So it is all over the place, truthfully here. I do think the best thing you can possibly do is go ahead and try to reduce down as low as you possibly can. People in the group have asked me how come I haven't tried to do less than the $50 a month. And quite honestly, I just don't want to poke the bear. I've done it. It's been on auto pay outside of when it paused. I really just haven't felt like bothering with negotiating a lower fee. I find immense value in the service, and $50 a month is not going to impact my life for it to be cheaper. Also, on their platform, you can do a lot more things. You can do vendor payments, such as like a Melio or a plastic type vibe. I personally didn't have a great experience with that a couple of years ago, so I stopped messing with it completely. But in our group, Shuba reported that she did successfully pay a vendor using Zil Money, and she had to get an email with chat support to get it going, but they were able to get it processed, and that still was able to get that 3x coding as well, which is nice. Also, some people have said that when they had weird issues on the desktop, so on their website version, when they try to just run it through the Zil Money app, which is on the App Store, then things can work. So some people have had that issue of industry not being supported pop up and on their computer, but when they do it on their app, their mobile app, it works just fine. So again, your miles may vary, but you can see there's a lot of nuances here in this when you have to kind of figure out for you what's going to work that makes sense. So before we get into the kind of accounting practices and some other things, I want to break down the math and talk through like, why does the math make sense for this? Because I understand that this is going to be an important piece. And at the end of the day, this has to make financial sense if you're going to be just paying fees to run things on your credit card. So here's the breakdown of why this absolutely can make sense. So let's just say your payroll, again, is $10,000 and you pay every 2 weeks or every other week, basically. So same thing. That's 26 pay periods a week. Your fee is 2.9%. Now, you're using the Chase Inc. Business Preferred, so you're getting 3x earnings. And to note, you get 3x on that fee as well. So here's the numbers here. The total charge, so $10,000 times 26 payroll cycles a year, $260,000. Total fees at 2.9% would be $7,540. Now, keep in mind, these are things, and I'm not an accountant, I can't give you tax advice, this is not a financial podcast, but your credit card expenses, payment fees, all of those things are typically tax deductions for your business. So there's a whole other tax envelope here that can be beneficial, that can technically reduce the true cost of these fees, but I'm not going to go into that mathematically here. Now, you earn points on that fee, as I mentioned. So you earn 260,000 points on the payroll, but you also earn 3x on the credit card fee. And that fee essentially means that you're going to have earned $30,870 in points per each payroll. And across 26 payroll cycles, that's 802,620 Chase points for the year. So over 800,000 Chase points for the year just by putting $10K every other week on a payroll cycle and paying the fee. Now, here's the real value here. If you're conservative, I talk on my show all the time about earning at least 2 cents per point, especially with your transferable points, your Chase, your Amex, your Capital One, as best as you possibly can. That's about $16,000 in value against $7,500 in fees. And if you redeem like I redeem, if you've been in this world for a while and your average redemption in a year is 3, 4, or 5 cents per point, well, then you're getting a massive amount of value for doing this. And that's why this can make sense, especially if you go the no-brainer route of using the Chase Inc. Business Preferred, because you're essentially getting immediate value in your points, even though you have to pay a fee to earn it because of the fact that the card earns the 3x. Now, what if you're not using that card? Because obviously that's a no-brainer. $16,000 of minimum value if you're conservatively, again, getting 2 cents per point redemption, $16,000 of value versus a $7,400 fee, that's a no-brainer. But what if you're using an Amex Business Platinum or a Capital One Venture X card that earns 2x or something along those lines? Well, all of the same numbers we're going to calculate, right? So $10,000 payroll, $290 fee. That's $10,290 per run. All of that times 2. I'm just going to fast track to the math here. So all of that getting 2x, 26 times a year, essentially would earn 535,080 points per year, right? So 535,000 transferable points per year. Now these would be ideally Amex points, Capital One points. So here's the value if we value them conservatively and realistically. So if you're only getting 1 cent of point per value, whether it's through statement credits or whatever it may be, well, then that 535,000 points is worth $5,300 in value. That's not worth it because you've still paid the $7,500 in fees. If you can get at least 1.5 cents of value per point, well, then now you're getting $8,000 roughly in value. So it's better, but it's just barely above break even. So if you're able to get 2 cents of value per point, then you're getting $10,000, $10,700 in this case, in value for your points. So you're getting more value, almost $3,000 more value than what you would have paid in fees. And you can imagine as you start redeeming your points for more and more and more, it absolutely makes sense again. So the strategic takeaway here is it all matters more so in how you redeem than just how you earn. And that's how points and miles works in general, to be very, very clear. It can be relatively easy to earn points and plenty of people earn points all over the place on their credit cards. They don't know how to redeem them properly. So understanding transfer partners, understanding how to utilize a transfer from Chase to Singapore Airlines or to Hyatt or whatever it may be, not booking through the portal. Although arguably I would say, especially now with the way that Chase's points boost works and all those different things, if you're getting basically more than a cent and a half of value with your Chase points, you're still going to win out because of the fact that you're getting so much value for, you're getting that triple, that 3x spend on the Chase Inc. Business Preferred. So that's why the math really, really makes sense, and why in my world, this is an absolute no-brainer for any business owner to take advantage. Now let's talk a little bit about the accounting side of things. And again, I'm not an accountant, I'm not going to give any sort of financial or tax advice here. I'm just going to talk through what other people have used and what I do as far as tracking. So I know this is a question that comes up often within our group. And I think you're going to confuse your bookkeeper as well if you don't align them with what you're doing, if you don't do your own books yourself. So one of the things I actually used to do was used to consider it a bank fee, but actually Beth in our group, she shared a note from her accountant friend that said to categorize the Zil Money fees as merchant fees rather than stacking everything under bank fees, because too many bank fees can, quote, raise eyebrows. So I do think that's something to keep in mind. Again, you might want to talk with your accountant or your bookkeeper to see what makes the most sense. But since she mentioned that, I myself have been changing this to be merchant processing fees as opposed to bank fees. Now, I mentioned in the beginning that this shows as two separate line items on your credit card. So if you're using a credit card, it's tied to QuickBooks, you're going to see that $10,000 charge separate from the $290 fee. And so when you see the two separate fees, that makes it really easy to essentially completely wipe out or exclude, this is what I do, exclude the $10,000 transaction and only keep the $290 charge fee as a reported business expense. So a lot of people, they do the same. They just completely in QuickBooks exclude that payroll transaction. They exclude both the expense and the income. So the $10,000 that hit their bank account, that's excluded, as well as a $10,000 charge on the credit card and the $10,000 payment to pay off the card. All that's excluded. The only thing that's really shown from this standpoint is the $290 credit card fee. I have randomly had a couple occasions where it's showed as one combined transaction. I know a couple other members have as well. In that case, when that has rarely happened, I will exclude the entire transaction and all the income and all the things still. And separately, I'll manually enter the fee portion as an expense. So if I go back into Zil Money in the report section and see that my fee was $290, I'm just going to go ahead and manually type that into QuickBooks as a merchant fee expense. Now, one thing that I don't do with my practice or have to kind of navigate or worry about is some profit sharing nuances. And so this was super helpful. This came from Christina because I know some people are asking, what do they do when it comes to having employees, maybe bonuses based on profit sharing, all those different things. And those fees that you are recording as an expense can accidentally reduce payouts for your staff or for your team for bonuses and such. So Christina shared that they removed the credit card fees from expenses specifically so it doesn't reduce the profit sharing pool for themselves. So that's what they do. They essentially treat the fees separately so their managers aren't penalized because the owners want points. And again, that's something that to talk to your bookkeeper about or your accountant to see what makes the most sense, because yes, you don't want your team to essentially have to eat the on-paper profits, or I should say eat the on-paper losses because you're just earning some points with your credit card. So just a few frequently asked questions as well that tend to pop up from time to time that I wanted to cover. One is, people ask, my run shows completed, but I don't see the deposit yet. How long should they anticipate before that happens? So when you actually go and run a Zil Money report or a payroll cycle, it will say processing, and then once it's approved on their end, it will show complete. Well, after it shows complete, it takes a couple days to actually charge your card, and then it's usually a day or so after that you see the money in your bank account. So I would say up to about 5 business days after you run it in their system will you actually see the funds in your bank account. Another question that gets asked is, when do you pay the card off? Most people, they pay it immediately. That's what I do. I'm not using this to float payroll or to float cash flow. I literally see the expense. I pay it off immediately. I don't want to have to deal with any issues around that. Other people like to use it a little bit to float or carry a balance. I know some people have surmised that there's a negative impact of, always paying off your credit card immediately multiple times without carrying any sort of transaction for a period. I have never seen that cause an issue. I have great credit limits. I've never had a bank cause any issues with that. So I pay everything off immediately because I don't want the headache or the hassle otherwise. So what is my personal strategy? What do I use Zil Money for? How do I do it myself? Well, as I've mentioned, the Chase Inc. Business Preferred is my go-to. That's a solid staple. I think it should be everyone's go-to until either things code differently or we find something that gets 4x or 5x or something like that in a transferable currency world. That is my workhorse for sure. And as I mentioned, I will fund that until I max out on one. And if I needed to, I would then switch to my other one and go towards maxing out that 150K. Now, if I'm chasing a sign-up bonus with like an Amex Platinum or specifically a Business Platinum, Business Gold, which I sometimes get a few of those each year, I'll pivot and I'll knock that out pretty quickly. Typically, I can knock both of those cards out in a single month with my payroll. So I sometimes, instead of having to worry about how I'm going to earn these charges over the course of time, I would just go ahead and knock that out and then switch back and boom, I earned all the points from that sign-up bonus. Now, later in the year, I pivot typically, depending on how my travels have gone between flights and hotels. I always aim for Hyatt Globalist, and I always aim for American Airlines Platinum Pro. So depending on where I am tracking with that, I will put spend on an American Airlines card. I haven't found any specific card that's of additional benefit. I have the Citi Business American Airlines card. I also have the American Globe MasterCard. There's no additional multipliers. I'm likely losing some efficiency here. I'm very clear on that because of the processing fee and the amount of American Airlines points earned. There's no multiplier on these, to be very clear. But for me, it's worth it to make sure I achieve the status of Platinum Pro. I usually only need to do a couple of payroll cycles before I have enough spend to qualify to make sure I've locked in Platinum Pro for the year. Now, on the Hyatt side, this is where I know I'm losing efficiency, and unfortunately, my 524 is a little bit high right now, so I'm either at 5 or 624. And part of that is because I got the Hyatt personal card last year, and then with some of the other cards I've gotten, like the Built Palladium and some other things, I can't currently get the Hyatt business card. I know 100% the Hyatt business card makes the most sense for this strategy for multiple reasons. The spend gets you more nights. So when I spend 10K on my Hyatt personal card, I only get 4 nights of credit versus 5. I don't get 2x of points, I only get 1x. So I 100% understand that. But still, if I need to, I will spend on that card. Again, I know I'm losing efficiency, but I'll spend on that card to make sure I've locked in my 60 nights for the year, to make sure I've hit Globalist. I think last year we ended up getting like over 70 nights in total with just actual stays and other things that ended up happening. But I'll just do that to make sure I've locked in my Globalist for the year as well. Speaking of the Built Palladium, I know some people have probably wondered why I didn't mention that card. I'm a little bit nervous to recommend that card just because of some of their rules when they came out around processing fees and external merchants and those things. I know some people have tested it because we've seen screenshots in our group where they ran $500 or $1,000 and they've gotten the 2x Built points. Maybe they ran the accelerator and they got 3x of value. But I think the general consensus is be wary. I wouldn't be charging a lot on your Built card because there are rules around external processors and them cutting people's accounts or closing people's accounts that have bought stuff at Costco and other things. I would just be very wary of that, and I wouldn't recommend it for now until someone says that they've been doing it for a while and they have had no issues. Again, your miles may vary. So I know this was a lot. This was probably not as organized and succinct and flowy as I like my episodes to be. I had a lot of notes to get through. I've been trying to compile information and data from a lot of people in our community to put this together. I do want to be very, very clear for anyone that's new. I am in zero way, shape, or form affiliated or tied with Zil Money. I've researched and found them myself, and after I did and used them for a while, I just used my platform to explain how they work, and we've had a huge amount of following from this. But to be very clear, I don't work for Zil Money. I have no ties to Zil Money. I have no contact points at Zil Money. I am a consumer and a user just like you are. I was frustrated just like you were last year when they weren't working properly. And that's kind of the extent of my reach goes. So I do want to make that very, very clear. Probably should have put that at the beginning, not at the end here. But I'm just a user that has a little bit of a platform, and I don't like to gatekeep information. And if I'm benefiting from it, I want you to as well. So just know that Zil Money, it's a powerful platform. It's not guaranteed forever. Coding can change, processors can change, underwriting rules changes. I think this is a great strategy that can make sense as long as it is working. One thing I do want to throw out there is, as of recording this, within the last couple of weeks, some members in our WhatsApp community chat have talked through a new website or system called Payroll. It's really designed for business owners. Some of them have gotten early access into it. I don't think it's live for everyone yet. Maybe there's a sign up. I haven't really looked too much into it specifically, but they do have the ability to run payroll. And I asked members of our group to provide some numbers on how it works, because obviously if this is a better platform to go with, then let's shift away from Zil Money. Here are some of the numbers that I've found so far on this, and I'm assuming things could obviously change. Their system could evolve, but as of right now, they charge a 3.25% platform fee plus a 2.9% credit card processing fee. So your total effective fee is 6.15%. If you go through all of that, then you earn 2 pay rewards points per dollar spent. And right now, their only current transfer partner is KrisFlyer, which is Singapore Airlines. So if you were to break down the same math that we used on Zil Money, a $10,000 payroll times 26 times a year means that you would pay almost $16,000 in annual fees, which is more than double what would happen with Zil. Now, you would earn 2 points per dollar, so you would earn 20,000 points per payroll within their system on top of whatever you're charging to your credit card. Now, I believe they code the same as Zil Money as well, so you're earning some points with them as well as you're earning 3x on your card there, but you are paying a much higher fee. I don't think we have a consensus yet on if it codes as 3x. If it does, you'll have values because you're going to get 3x on your credit card still, like you're chasing business preferred, but then you'll get 2x on their platform, even though you're paying a much higher fee to do it all. And their platform is brand new. Their points could devalue. They could completely go belly up like programs like Mesa have. So I'm not really sure if we can build on that yet. If we can, I will absolutely talk through that in the future. But I think the biggest issue that arises with this, why I'm almost immediately like this is not the route to go, is according to Vi. So shout out to you, Vi, for sending us all this kind of research you've done and some of the data points here, that the money, instead of going to your business account, goes to the employee's account. So right now through Zil Money, you charge your credit card, that money goes into your actual business account. And again, you can just use that to pay your credit card off. It seems like with them, your charge goes into your employee's account to actually pay them. And so you're not necessarily taking money out of your business account still, like you would in the normal payroll process. I think that gets a little bit messy. I'm a little weary of that. I'm not saying it's necessarily a bad thing, but I like the fact that as of right now, nothing changes with my banking information or anything like that. When I run through Zil Money, my payroll happens as it always would have, and I'm just essentially getting a deposit of money to just pay back on a card versus having to change my banking to make sure that the pay comes from my credit card so they don't get double paid from my bank account as well. Not really a huge fan of that, but we'll see what happens there. So guys, I know this was a lot. This was a lot of information. This is probably one of my longest solo episodes ever. I try to keep my solo episodes short, but there was so much information to parse through. I know this probably wasn't as succinct and flowing through as I would usually like. I had so many notes to go through. I want to give a shout out to everybody in our WhatsApp community that has added information, that has said back when the system was down, the days that they came back up and we were able to jump on things. The fact that I was able to crowdsource a lot of this information is a big thanks to you all. So I do want to give a shout out to all of you. If I missed anyone's name from a data point standpoint, I do apologize. I tried to capture all of this and save it over the last few weeks and months to make sure I was giving the right information and getting timely information out there as well. I do appreciate each and every one of you. We've created an incredible community. If you are new to this world, to this platform, again, within our WhatsApp community chat, which you can find through subscribing to our newsletter and joining our Facebook group, access to our WhatsApp community, then you'll be able to ask questions, comment, feedback, all those different things. We have a very positive community. It's very healthy. I absolutely enjoy it. And I love keeping that air of positivity. So you're more than welcome if you're a positive person as well. I think I've said enough today on today's episode. I think I've talked enough. So I'm just going to go ahead and wrap this one up. As always, if you found this helpful, make sure to like, subscribe, tell your friends. As Zil Money and Payroll on Credit Card evolves, we'll be updating not just these episodes, but a lot of our updates on Zil Money since episode 53 came in our quick hits. Again, our audio only version on Fridays is when I would give quick updates on what's happening on the Zil Money platform. And so I was getting out there that the 3X came back on the Chase Inc. Business Preferred a week after it happened through that update. So make sure to subscribe to our blog. Follow our podcast both on YouTube and the audio version if you're just watching us on YouTube. And I think with that, we will wrap this one up. And as always, I will catch you on the next episode. Take care.